wish the heroes in our stories were real, Sam.
Nothing is lost if the memory remains. These are the words etched into the digital analogues of the Sam AI's mind. We can see briefly appear during the tomb's ending cutscene. Very blurry and intentionally hidden from view. But what could Samantha mean by this? I have a suspicion that this phrase is the single best view of the future of Call of Duty Zombies that Black Ops 6 have given us so far. Just as the initial references to Richtoff's son Samuel and his tragic history served as very quiet and minute details when first introduced in Black Ops Cold War, this small outlier in information is set up for something far larger. The potential return of the Great War, the return of the original characters, and perhaps so much more of the past.
Canon is canon, and we've put a story to rest, but as you comb through this new universe, don't be surprised if some things don't want to stay dead.
Did Nikolai make a mistake in allowing young Samantha Maxis and Richtoff a way through to the new universe? Did they bring the memories of the original characters to the forefront of our new story? Did they allow the cycle to continue? They were supposed to get a fresh start, to live new lives free from corruption and the zombies. And Richtoff got that. He was adopted by Kraft and built a family of his own. But that family was burnt alive at the hands of Weaver and Samantha, leading him on a path of destruction and vengeance, ripping the Dark Aether open once more in a desperate and obsessive attempt to try and restore his family back from the dead. It seems as though almost everything is repeating. Zombies are back and the Dark Aether is bleeding into our world once more. Richtoff and Samantha's upbringings have been largely flipped in many regards. Both are now trapped in the Dark Aether. We are about to see the Sam AI fight against Richtoff once more like the good old days. And we just visited the ancient tomb in France where ancient warriors fought on a medieval mound where Primis once battled long ago, beckoning for their echoes to return. If we are just memories, then nothing dies in zombies, and the two remnants from the old story coming to the new universe would have created a paradox for their return. The very people who heard stories of them from Primis Richtofen, Monty, and Ludwig Maxis. These tales inspired their endless fun games in the house with replicas of them in the form of toys. It must have come as a sheer shock when these two children came face to face with these mystified heroes on Alpha Omega, only to then see them all die, forever traumatizing their new lives. The original characters were bonded with the Aether and all of creation itself via the elemental shard. They all had to be purged from ever having existed to stop the fracturing of the universes and begin anew. Nikolai even says the following at the end of the story.
We fought for what we wanted. We got more than we deserved. All the chapters of our lives, good and bad. Even if there was no witness, even if no one cared to see, it still happened somewhere.
Despite their lives being wiped, it did still happen, even if no one could remember. But there's a problem in that. Richtoff and Samantha could, and he is now plagued with nightmares of the events of the Aether, and potentially Samantha too. An anchor the Shadowsmiths could grab onto and pull their essence into life from. All of that and more will be unveiled in this video, so stay tuned.
You remember me a little. There'll be a story in your head. That's okay. We're all stories in the end. Just make it a good one, eh?
To truly get a grasp on what Sam could have meant by this memories thought, we have to look elsewhere in the tomb's ending cutscene. Initially, most fans, myself included, wrote off the tomb's cutscene as a quick transition into Mansion. While there are many little tidbits of text lore via sections of Richtoffen's data entries that Sam accesses, they seem to mostly just be some added flair around the stories of the artifacts and the mansions. This extra data was there to try and buff the content factor on what was otherwise a relatively relatively shallow cutscene for lore heads, since we've managed to extrapolate some very interesting implications from many of the entries on the artifact, but that frankly took some serious digging and comparisons with Chaos lore to take anything meaningful from it. However, there is one lore entry here containing extremely important future information that I believe many, in their haste to write off the cutscene as unimportant, allowed it to slip by. The entry I'm speaking of is the excerpt from the song Amenhotep, Rhodes File 118, appear in historical record since Egypt's pre-dynastic period, and thus did Cortifex render unto Amenhotep the instrument of eternal renewal, and bid him feed its shards of tempest, and the gates of Duat bend to his will. Song of Amenhotep, 4100 BCE. Breaking down this language reveals essential clues about the role of the Sentinel artifact and its connection to memory-based time manipulation, and we missed it because of the initially complex way it was phrased. The instrument of eternal renewal clearly refers to the Sentinel artifact, which we already know was bestowed upon Amenhotep by Cortifex. This phrase implies that the artifact is a tool for resurrection or rebirth, tying it directly to themes of returning the dead to life. Next, the instruction to feed it shards of tempest is especially significant. Tempest is Latin for time, and shards of tempest suggests fragmented pieces of time itself, with these could even be broken pieces from the elemental shard, thus containing remnants of the original character's souls, despite them supposedly having been purged. And if my theory is true that the shards of tempest are related to the original character's echoes, then what better name for this new version of them than Tempest, because we know they are not going to be Primis, they are not going to be Ultimus. They are apparently going to be slightly older than Primis, but not as old as Ultimus. And I think if our theory is true that they're going to be echoes essentially around forever, then what better word for them than time itself? As they transcend time, they are a fragment of time. But regardless of whether or not that is true, what could these fragments represent? Most likely, they symbolize memories, preserved moments in time that act as echoes of the past. In this sense, Amenhotep was directed to charge the Sentinel artifact with memories, potentially turning it into a vessel for manipulating time itself. Finally, the line that the gates of Duat bend to his will is key. In ancient Egyptian mythology, Duat was the realm of the afterlife, a transitional space where souls resided before reaching the next stage of existence. To bend the gates of Duat means to manipulate or open the barriers of the afterlife itself. Taken together, this passage strongly suggests that the Sentinel artifact, when powered by preserved memories or echoes of time, has the ability to breach the afterlife and return the dead to the world of the living. This aligns with the echo-based mechanics we've seen in the Dark Aether, such as the spectral reflections on the machine, or refighting the memory or the echo of the entity at the end of Modern Warfare Zombies, or the echoes we see of Archibald's memories speaking to us throughout the Tomb's main quest, and reinforces the idea that memories and time fragments are central to both the artifact's power and the building conclusion. These are essentially what these orbs are that we see in Outbreak and Cold War Zombies. These are orbs containing the essence, the memories of lost souls. The Dark Aether is often referred to as Hell, and whilst it's not as simple as that, it does serve in a similar way. This idea of people being able to return to life via bringing them back via a form of memory, or collecting their memories, essentially just memories of people being caught to return them to life, reminded me of something. I believe that this something is actually the inspiration behind what we are about to see with the Sentinel artifact. The rules around the Sentinel artifact bringing someone back to life seem to coincide with the rules that Kingdom Hearts set in place relatively recently for its time travel mechanics. While this may sound insane to connect at first, remember, we have been discussing since the launch of the game that once Richtofen likely inevitably manages to make a body for his deceased family with Prima Materia, if his plan is successful that is, they would still need a soul. The physical flesh and bodies of them would not be the same people that died, even if he recreated them down to the atomic level. And from there, we had been theorizing that Richtofen was somehow planning to use the temporal anomalies being studied at the mansion and Janus Towers to time travel back and acquire his family's souls from the past. As we know, he's been researching into time travel and time distortion properties of the Dark Aether. But what if both of these things, reviving them, and time traveling are essentially the same thing. Like stated before, in the tomb we see an echo of Archibald from the past be forcibly summoned through the use of the Obscurus Attilium amulet. Could it be then, now that it's merged with the Sentinel artifact, which seems to restore it and fix it, causing it to glow a purple, it will literally pull someone's essence through time, just as it did Archibald's echo. This could explain why the artifact needs to collect echoes/memories to be powered up. So how does this relate to Kingdom Hearts anyway? Kingdom Hearts is quite a complicated series with years of lore just as complex as the zombie storyline, so instead of deep diving all of its lore and characters here, let's take a look at how its time travel functionality works. In Kingdom Hearts, time travel operates under rigid rules that emphasize the role of memory and emotional imprints. Traditionally, travelers must separate their heart from their body to move through time, requiring a version of themselves to already exist at the destination. Furthermore, altering destined events is forbidden, and upon returning to their original time, travelers lose all memories of the experience. However, these memories remain imprinted on their heart, subtly influencing future actions and decisions. This connection between memory and identity plays a vital role in Kingdom Hearts' storytelling. The lifeboat device in Kingdom Hearts is used for an evolved form of time travel that removes the need for a traveler to have an existing version at the destination. Instead, it relies on two critical components: a medium, an object tied to the traveler, and someone at the destination who remembers the traveler. If either condition is not met, the traveler may lose their memories entirely. This concept ties memory and connection directly to how someone is reconstituted across time, making it a more flexible but riskier form of time travel. And to me, this brings to mind Mr. Peaks, who the red orb in the second Outbreak quest bonds with, and who is described as keeping the boy safe in his hat, essentially protecting him within the Dark Aether. Could that be the soul, the essence of Richtofen's son? If so, could Mr. Peaks be the very item tied to the traveler needed to restore him? Could he have even been a toy gifted to him by his father, Edward, in his young life, potentially holding onto it as he died in the flames? This lifeboat system bears striking similarities to the echoes featured in the zombies' Dark Aether storyline. In the Dark Aether, echoes are translucent, so far being blue, white, red manifestations of past events, capturing and replaying a memory from a specific point in time. The Dark Aether is described as an ocean with many layers. These can be the waves of the past, shimmering forever. These echoes are more than simple recordings. They reflect the preserved essence of individuals and events, reenacting dialogue and actions. While they initially seem to exist mostly as a method of delivering exposition to us and filling in history for the maps, to us, the players, the Dark Aether has time and time again been shown to take memories from people to feed off of or transform them. This seems to suggest that these echoes may play a far bigger role than essentially visualization for information that could have been a radio in prior titles. And with Liberty Falls ending, where Panos restores his life after just being a soul, after being a ghost, by stealing the essence of the zombies as well as the strike team, restoring his life and then exiting through the rift back into the real world, probably heading to Janus Towers or elsewhere in Liberty Falls to clean up some loose ends and meet some friends. This can be setting up the idea of people being able to restore back to life through essence. Now that we know the Sentinel artifact is powered by shards of Tempest, a term that clearly alludes to shards of time, since like I said, Tempest means time in Latin, but what exactly is a shard of time, if not a memory, an echo? These memories, the echoes, appear to be key to the artifact's time warping power. When Amenhotep used the shards of time to bend the gates of Duat to his will, it likely involved bringing someone back from the dead by manifesting them from their memories, much like the lifeboat's process of reforming a traveler at their destination using an artifact and their memories. This parallel is significant because both narratives treat memory as a fundamental force in time travel and resurrection. The lifeboat in Kingdom Hearts and the echoes in the Dark Aether rely not just on physical travel through time, but on the preservation preservation of emotional bonds and past experiences to anchor individuals across timelines, across the world, and the afterlife. By tying identity to memories, both stories suggest that what makes you, you, is the memories and experiences that shape you. Essentially, your memories are your soul. This would explain why Richtofen would need to do this alongside creating bodies for his families, even if Modi's biological experiments to create a new body for them had worked. Even if Modi was successful in recreating a body from a single sample of DNA, this body would be an empty vessel, with no heart, no essence, no memories, no soul. And this is extremely pertinent with the tomb, where the Sam AI and Richtofen argue over whether or not each have a soul, with Sam arguing that Richtofen is too obsessed with death for him to have a soul, despite him literally just being a soul from within the house. Yet the Sam AI seems to crave to want a soul, despite the fact that she still has memories of the real Samantha. What defines her as a person? What defines her as separate from the real Samantha, if not the memories? And this concept of essence traveling through time, memories being able to be brought forward into bodies, it all lines up very well with the theory I discussed in a prior video on the new Great War, which I will link on screen and in the description. If you want more detail and evidence for this, as I believe it's returning, check it out after we're done with this one, but I'll just quickly nutshell as a refresher for everyone. In essence, no pun intended, we know that the Call of Duty 2025 villain, Black Ops 7 Zombies, whatever it ends up being called, likely the Warden, as described by Tom Henderson, probably one and the same as the Shadowsmiths, plans to use the essence of the original characters in order to bring back the multiverse, and they are fighting to stop this from happening. Knowing their essence already exists in some manner, and knowing that throughout multiple points in history it seems the Dark Aether broke loose at the tomb and was fought back by humanity, it seems to be the case that their essence has travelled throughout time, only manifesting when necessary to resume the new Great War and push back the Dark Aether, keeping it sealed for thousands of years, whilst it has been bleeding out throughout, but never able to fully consume. These essences of the original characters would take over 4 chosen heroes of the time, and use them to fight the Dark Aether. Heroes like the 4 bastard sons of the Owl, or whoever the ancient statues are in the tomb. All of this seems to suggest that these characters' essence does still exist right now, and is somehow already supernaturally manifesting at times the Dark Aether's darkest creatures threaten to escape. And it seems that memories, or someone remembering them, would be the key to taking this still existing essence and bringing it back to life. It seems to me that there is one character who would almost certainly still remember these 4, and also will likely end up with the Sentinel artifact by the end of the game. Samantha Maxis may still remember them, but we know from the story of Modern Warfare Zombies and Ravenov's dialogue within that she doesn't ever get saved from the Dark Aether.
Maxis sacrificed herself to end the outbreak. We promised we would find a way to rescue her. And when we failed, it was a blow. Some of us took it very hard.
Even if her amnesia is gone and her memories have been restored, allowing her to remember the original characters. So it likely isn't her, but she is still a candidate. Another candidate then, of course, is the Sam AI. We know there's a good chance that she may end up with the artifact by the end of this game. She's only one of 2 likely people, of course. And she likely wants to have a physical body, a soul, to be a real person and know what it's like to be alive, and that's probably what she wants to do with the artifact, similar to Richtofen's purpose. She's stealing his goal of creating a body. However, the issue comes with her memories. She is based off of an AI copy of Samantha, who seems to be just after Firebase D, so would still be the Samantha Maxis currently suffering from amnesia, and thus wouldn't have memories of the original characters, unless through Richtofen's interrogations of her, the memories have been restored along the lines. This leaves one final candidate.
I wish the heroes in our stories were real, Sam.
I believe that once the Sam AI falls, as she will inevitably turn on us, whether on Mansion or Janus Towers, we will defeat her, and thus Zykov in turn, as I believe he is within the Sam AI's Sophia core, acting as a battery, powering her and her powers. After the Sam AI is defeated, I believe Eddie will see the incoming threat of an out-of-control Dark Aether, and potentially the looming inevitability of the Shadowsmiths, which are probably going to be set up as the villain right at the end of the story. And if these characters have manifested many times in the past, as we suspected with the Bastard Sons of the Owl, it stands to reason that in all of his studies that Eddie Richtofen would surely have learned of them by now. Could it be then that he creates the entity as a temporary stopgap to hold back the worst creatures of the Dark Aether? And this is how Ava Jansen is factored into the climax or the epilogue of the story. A footnote: ancient enemies like the Shadowsmiths, and her creation was meant to hold back ancient enemies like the Shadowsmiths, and in the meantime implement a plan to bring back the original characters using his memories of them. Could it be then that these shards of Tempest are actually containing his memories? We know that the Sam AI says that she has specific elements needed for the Sentinel artifact prepared at the mansion.
The artifact requires an infusion of exotic materials. Unique elements that can only be harvested here at Liberty Falls. I have already ensured everything we need is ready for your arrival. You will see your lost Agent Maxis again soon. I'll be waiting.
But obviously we know that the Sentinel artifact plan was Richthofen's plan that she has seemingly just stolen for her own. As a result, if there is some sort of plan with these shards, surely Richthofen would have been the one to come up with it and not her. So could these contain the memories of the original characters? From either Richthofen or potentially even the Sam AI if she did manage to restore her memories. This is all clearly stated in the ending of The Tomb, and this could be very well how the original characters could return in a way that makes sense, because right now the big question is, will it undo the ending of Tag the Totem? These characters were supposed to be purged from existence. However, what if they don't actually properly return and we are just playing as their echoes, their souls, meaning they are not properly back? They are just within the Dark Aether. Potentially something happens at the end of the storyline which plunges the Requiem crew into the Dark Aether. As we know, they end up dying from prolonged Dark Aether exposure. And we know there's an 8-player mode rumoured for COD 2025 Zombies, which could be the original characters' echoes and the 4 Requiem characters, 8 total. This way, these original characters could be manifested as echoes and not physically them, and they have to battle from within the Dark Aether, keeping enemies like the Shadowsmiths or many of the other ancient old ones at bay from breaching the real world, and they may be trapped in a constant cycle, manifesting over and over again to keep the battle within the Dark Aether, to keep the Great War within, and prevent the Shadowsmiths from restoring the multiverse in the real world. Because after all, when we look at the storyline, like when we fight the echo of the entity, there aren't 2 entities in the storyline. That is just an echo. It's not a real one that we fight afterwards. It's simply a memory, a slither of the past, a vibration in time, the blood rippling through time. So maybe that's who the original characters are. The ending of Tag the Totem is still all canon. The original characters do still remain dead, but there is something of their memory that remains, allowing them to be manifested as echoes. However, the Shadowsmiths may want to fully restore them back to real life in the real world and bring back the multiverse, as that would happen if the original characters would come back, as they would inevitably restart the cycle and start doing all this time travel, and there would be fractures again and blah blah blah. This way, these echoes may manifest as guardians of the Dark Aether, sentinels, to keep the Shadowsmiths at bay. And they each have to defend their souls, their essence from the Shadowsmiths in restoring them back to life, preventing them from using them as an anchor to restore the old Aetherverse. This way they can get a proper conclusion where their memories are left fighting, but they do stay dead. And then, right after the events of Modern Warfare Zombies, or perhaps even in the past if Ava is pulled back in time through the mirror, just basically whenever it is that the Shadowsmiths are taken over, Eddie will pull the trigger and use these heroes only he remembers because he knows they can save the world. They can be real again in this new universe. He wishes those stories were real, and now they can be. When the Sentinel artifact is activated to restore his family, maybe something will go wrong and distort the Dark Aether and unleash the Shadowsmiths as they regain power due to the vacuum left if Sam/Psychov is defeated. And thus, in its sentience, the Sentinel artifact may manifest its own sentinels from these memories of Richthofen, or potentially he does so intentionally himself using the Sentinel artifact and these shards of Tempest. They are its protectors, its guardians of the Dark Aether, the original 4's echoes, to return to battle from within the Dark Realm and keep the good fight locked, encapsulated within, so as to not bleed into the real world. Richthofen can get his happy life living with his family, whilst at the same time the world is safe because those echoes are keeping it safe. For a long time, we've all thought these characters were gone, never to return, and thus we were very shocked by these COD 2025 Zombies leaks. However, nothing is gone if the memory remains.